The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
Welcome, everybody, to our brand new program, Need to Know, our second edition. We hope you caught the show last week. I'm Kip Keefer, along with Terre Quillian, and we're ready to go again for another version of Just the Facts to get to the truth. And Terre, I feel the need to premise this program with the disclaimer, for lack of a better word, that we're not really coming on with this theme to talk about some kind of partisan ideological agenda of our own. We just, once again, want to lay out the facts. And I think this is a very vital topic that should be of interest to all Americans, because everything we're going to talk about today is in answer to the question, who is actually running this country?
Which, Kip, should be an issue to everyone in the country, regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum.
Yeah, no question. And I think, Terre, probably the best place to start is the compelling evidence that we have seen that is not irrefutable. It is irrefutable because, again, it's fact. And this is a leader that famously declared in a campaign event in 2020 that, quote, "We believe in truth, not facts," unquote. Well, that's not what we believe. And we think it's important to lay out facts in a concise manner because in this day and age of sound bites and headlines, I think the public is kind of deprived of that kind of comprehensive look at facts and information that they need in one place. It's all kind of tiny bits of agenda driven material. So that's kind of the idea behind this theme.
Well, I think there's a lot of material here in terms of who is running the show. Most people that I know who voted for Joe Biden voted for Joe Biden of old. They voted for the Joe Biden who campaigned as a moderate, who you couldn't really know he wasn't a moderate because during his time in the Senate, he really never accomplished anything. So if you've never really accomplished anything, there's no big legislation with your name or your handprint on it, then you can kind of be whoever you want to be. And they believed that Joe Biden was going to be a uniter. That's how he ran. The problem right now is there is no indication at all that Joe Biden is running the United States of America.
That's for certain. There's been some really compelling examples of what you just illustrated there. Let's talk about just a week ago, the up close photos that were taken, images were taken of a certain, it looked like a laminated card that he carried into a event at the White House. Describe what was on that card.
Kip, this was absolutely amazing. So the card that he accidentally let the backside of it show, he had it turned the wrong way for the cameras to see, told him where to go on stage. You go on stage, you turn left or right, I forget which, you sit down in the chair, you do this, you do that, you exit. Basic instructions written at below a fifth grade level. It was just incomprehensible that you would give those instructions to the leader of the free world.
Terre, you worked in two administrations. You worked directly with George W. Bush, Donald J. Trump. Is it even within the realm of imagination that you could hand one of those leaders a card like that, and what would their reaction have been?
Well, Kip, not only did I work with President Bush and President Trump and Vice President Pence, but I was in a unique position. So at many of their appearances, my position was that I was standing, not during the Bush administration, but during the Trump administration, I would be an offstage announce. An offstage announce is the place where the president or the vice president is just before they step onto the stage. And in offstage announce, you have the teleprompter operator, perhaps the chief advance person for the trip, and nobody else standing there, usually when the president is about to go on stage. I can guarantee you that no one ever handed President Trump or Vice President Biden a card telling him where to walk, where to sit, what to do. I can't even imagine what the reaction of President Trump would have been if someone had done something so foolish. No, instead, what we had were we would have briefing papers before every event, and they would include a diagram that the president or vice president would see while on the plane, typically, to the venue, showing them what the layout was going to be. That's it. The president or vice president did not then hold that paper to know where to go. And we certainly never gave them a note card. I cannot even imagine President Trump if given such a note card. And I can tell you what Vice President Pence did before going on stage. He would be by himself and he would pray. And President Trump was very quiet and by himself. No one approached President Trump in the minutes before he'd go on stage. He was extremely focused on the audience. We always had monitors backstage. He was focused on the audience and what the person introducing him was saying. This idea that the president would need a note card with the infantile messages of, you go here, you go there, I can promise you is completely unprecedented.
And this event was not at some, auditorium in Seattle. This was in the Roosevelt Room at the White House. He should have had total familiarity. And the fact that he needs kindergarten style instructions is just mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling, but you know what happens, Kip? Even with kindergarten instructions, Joe Biden still screws it up.
So
For
true.
example, there are times like, excuse me, recently when he was in North Carolina making a speech. I don't know if you caught this particular, example of the Biden dementia, but at the conclusion of the speech, he clearly does not know where to go or where to look. He turns and looks to the side and begins speaking to an imaginary person. There's no one there. And then he holds out his hand and pretends to shake hands with an imaginary person. There's no one there. And then he wanders about aimlessly on stage. I have never witnessed anything like this. So you can see why they would give him the card.
Well, and again, sticking to just absolute fact, there have been several times, Terry, that I say several, there's been numerous is a better word for this, that Joe Biden has avoided taking questions, answering questions, and has made reference to, well, I can't answer any questions because they is the key word here. They would be very upset with me, or I'm out of time. I'm not taking any questions. I've been instructed not to continue with questions. Again, Donald Trump, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, they're the leader of the free world. Terry, who is they?
There are other examples. It's not like you're just cherry picking one. Do you remember at the White House Easter egg roll that the person dressed up as a bunny, as the Easter bunny, came and pulled Biden away from talking to people at that event? I mean, to have the Easter bunny pull you away, how degrading can it be? And then recently, when he was leaving for a beach trip in Delaware, he was getting tugged away and he's saying, I have to go, I'm late. Now, Kip, he was going to be boarding Marine One, and then Marine One was going to take him to Andrews Air Force Base where he was going to get on Air Force One. Marine One and Air Force One depart at the president's pleasure. There is no timetable. The plane is not going to leave him, nor is the helicopter. This idea that he has to hurry, it would be one thing if there was another official event that he's going to, but no, he's going on a vacation, but somehow he has to hurry because he's late. This is absolutely beyond belief. There is a mysterious they, and I really feel like it's incumbent upon us to share with our listeners, at least our theory on who the mysterious theys are.
So that tees us up to the, for lack of a better term, suspect list. Who is running this show? I've got a number of nominees, as I know you do as well. Terry, I'm not sure if what we're dealing with right now in this country, and it's amazing that this ideology, this kind of progressive woke movement, continually uses the term a threat to our democracy. Well, if we have a behind the scenes board of directors pushing all of the levers and holding all of the strings for basically just a figurehead of a president, I think that's probably a pretty serious threat to our democracy.
I would agree with you, Kip. And first up on my list is someone who is hiding in plain sight, someone that normally does have an enormous amount of power that's just got a even increased role now, and that is the president's chief of staff, Ron Klain. And I don't know if everybody knows how it works in government offices, but especially in the executive offices. Typically, the two most powerful people in the office will be the chief of staff and the head of scheduling. And the head of scheduling, not so much at the presidential level, because the chief of staff is controlling that. But the chief of staff is the absolute gatekeeper for the president. No one gets to see, have a meeting, talk with the president of the United States that the chief of staff has not okayed. And in this case, the chief of staff is a longtime swamp creature by the name of Ron Klain, who has additional power because, get this, Kip, he was the chief of staff during the Obama administration when Biden was the vice president.
Wow. So that lists a major outlet that we can look to, because not only is Ron Klain in the inner circle in the West Wing, also one of Barack Obama's chief advisors, Susan Rice, who is clearly the orchestrator of very much of the Russiagate scandal, the illegal wiretapping on an opponent's campaign, a lot of the shenanigans that took place with our intelligence bureaus of, basically spying on Americans, which is a complete violation of law. Susan Rice was the coordinator of a lot of that, and here she is right back in the front row with the ear of the president.
The thing to me that's the most disturbing about Susan Rice, and only in government would it be possible for Susan Rice to get another job after what she did regarding Benghazi. Susan Rice has blood on her hands. Plus, why should anyone trust Susan Rice when she came out? It was a completely fictitious narrative, and was talking about how the terrible, terrible raid on the American embassy in Benghazi was ignited by a video. She absolutely knew that was not true. She knew that the horrific torture, most people don't know the torture, and even though we're not in over-the-air radio, it's just too appalling for me to say on air what the horrid jihadis did to Ambassador Chris Stevens before they murdered him, but it was horrific. Chris, along with other Americans, died in that attack, and she came out and lied about it. She and Hillary Clinton carry those individuals' blood on their hands. Then Hillary has the nerve to run for president. And my God, I would never have guessed that Susan Rice could find herself back in a position of power. But God Almighty, there she is. And Kip, there's a crucial thing to know about both Ron Klein and Susan Rice. It is imperative that everyone know this. It's something that is never talked about. Do you know what the net worth of Susan Rice is?
I can't even imagine.
You're going to be blown away. According to her own filings, her own disclosures, her net worth, which she made in the stock market primarily, her net worth increased four times under President Donald Trump. Her net worth is between $36 and $149 million. Now,
wow.
Wait, you got to pair that, because here's how it plays out and is important with Ron Klein, who I don't know his total net worth. It's somewhere over 12 million. He made $8 million in the private sector during the years that Trump was there. What's crucial about these net worths is that Ron Klein and Susan Rice are running the shadow government in America. And the reason their net worth matters is not because I begrudge anybody making money under capitalism, but Kip, these two swamp creatures, they've got theirs. They've got their money. So they are totally happy to enact a completely socialist agenda on the rest of the American people that makes it impossible for them to achieve the American dream, because Susan Rice and Ron Klein, they've got theirs. They don't care about middle-class America.
Yeah, one other footnote on Susan Rice. Remember, the Sunday after the Benghazi attack, she went on 7 different morning and afternoon news programs on Sundays and declared that the reason for the attack was inspired by an anti-Muslim video. That was the whole reason that it happened. It was absolutely concocted. It was absolutely untrue. And also the lack of response with plenty of time to a lot of people in the military reacted with great frustration because there was time to deploy help for those embattled representatives of our embassy and for Ambassador Stevens. And that help never came because the Obama administration and people like Susan Rice were concerned that it would make the fact that they had touted their successful Libyan policy obsolete, and it would damage that contention. So this was...
Well, Kip, it gets worse. I've had the opportunity to not only hear Chris Paronto, who was one of the 4 security contractors in Libya, who finally directly disobeyed Hillary Clinton's orders and went to try to save Chris and their friends at the American embassy in direct contravention of the orders. But I've gotten to have personal conversation with Chris Paronto. He's better known as Tonto among those 4 in Benghazi. And when you hear Chris talk about it, it's so upsetting. He said that Hillary referenced the fog of war. As Chris said, there's no fog of war. Everything is crystal clear. You know, I can recall the bullets whistling by my ears during Benghazi. No, we had plenty of time to deploy folks who were already there. In addition, in Tripoli, we had American fighter jets revving on the runway. They didn't even have to do anything. According to Chris, just a low flyby would have been enough to have dispersed the jihadis. Susan Rice's lie is so evil because she blamed an anti-Muslim video when in reality it was Muslim extremists who went there on a mission to kill and destroy the Americans at the embassy. She's
Stunning.
Despicable.
You were talking about people profiting in their, quote, public service. Well, we're not witnessing anything different with Joe Biden now than the role he's been playing during his basically 50 years in public office. This is a man who never had a job. His first assignment out of college, where he graduated near the bottom of his class, despite him still claiming in speeches and presentations that he was at the top of his class, which is absolutely untrue.
Very, very bottom of his class.
But this guy's first job was on the city council at some podunk town in Delaware, and he's done nothing in over 50 years except work in politics. In the meantime, the second major suspect of who's calling the shots also is profiting handsomely from Amtrak Average Joey's service for our government and for our country, allegedly. His brother, James Biden, and his son, Hunter Biden, and the illustrious spouse of President Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, all have his ear, and all, I fear, have an awful lot of influence in what's the decision-making process right now for our commander-in-chief.
Kip, I am going to refuse to call Jill Biden Dr. Jill Biden, because I'm sure our listeners know Jill Biden is not a medical doctor. Jill Biden has her PhD in education. Nothing wrong with having your PhD in education. But Kip, one of my closest friends here in Texas is a medical doctor. Brunel Nanala has never introduced himself to a soul as Dr. Nanala. You and I both got to be close friends with lots of folks that have PhDs, or, for example, Sir Dermot Turing. Did you ever hear Dermot Turing call himself a sir in
Never.
the years that we knew him? When you were at Gettysburg with him, did he introduce himself as Sir Turing and his wife as Lady Turing to anyone?
Absolutely did not. So, you know, this family, it is well documented, and there is irrefutable, once again, proof that James Biden, his younger brother by 7 years, has made a complete cottage industry out of jockeying for position based on Joe Biden's various positions, including during the Obama administration, joining a construction firm by the name of Hill Construction that was a manufacturer of affordable housing. James Biden had no experience whatsoever in the housing or construction business, but all of a sudden was named vice president. A month later, Hill Construction got a $1.5 billion contract to build affordable housing in Iraq. What a coincidence.
Oh my God, Kip, you are amazing. I had no idea about that. That's incredible. And I don't know, and this is pretty much what I do for a living. I'm sure the average Americans don't know about that.
No.
I wonder what cut went to the big guy on that one.
Yeah. Well, we do know about Hunter Biden and his laptop, which, of course, was dismissed by Susan Rice and intelligence officers, including 5 former directors of our intelligence services. In a written document, they declared it Russian disinformation, despite the fact that the recipients of emails and messages on the other side had come forward and showed that it was absolutely authentic. But Hunter Biden is another person who has just recently, a soundbite has emerged of Hunter Biden saying that his dad, who always says publicly, Hunter is the smartest man I know. And he says how great it is that he always has the ear of his father, the president, and he gives his advice and his opinion on all kinds of world affairs. So one of the people calling the shots, in essence, is a complete train wreck of a human being who was dishonorably discharged from the military for constant drug abuse, who was given, with Joe Biden being in charge of Ukrainian policy for the United States, suddenly his son, no experience Hunter Biden, became a board member of Burisma, a major oil and gas producer in Ukraine, at a salary at over $1 million a year. I'm sure he contributed all kinds of expertise in a subject he knew nothing about.
Of course.
And he also flew on Air Force Two. This might be the most insidious of all. On Air Force Two with his father to China, where he had private meetings with representatives of the Chinese Communist Party, and walked away from those meetings with this is an important number. Once again, it's the same as Jimmy Biden cashed in a $1.5 billion investment in a financial firm that he was one of the partners to invest. I'm sure he got that once again because of his acumen and his wizardry and how he'd managed his life. And the Chinese said, this is a guy I've got to have on board to manage our money.
Kip, you are amazing. The amount of information that you have is absolutely incredible. Promise me that we'll do an entire show about Hunter Biden. There's just so much that people don't know. What you think you know, folks, you may know a lot. I promise you, the most salacious, most despicable parts, you probably don't know yet. So Kip, promise me we'll get a whole show on Hunter.
I think that's a good idea. So to kind of tie up those loose ends, Terry made reference to this. There is an email to one of his partners that has been, once again, authenticated by the recipient, displaying on his equipment the message itself. And the message was, and don't forget, we need to cut the big guy in for 10%. Terry, who do you suppose the big guy might be?
I have an idea who the big guy is. And I am just amazed, Kip. I know about media bias. I've been in the media. I understand that. But I have never seen anything like this. The fact that no one wants to go after what is obvious fraud on the part of Joe Biden, and the fact that he's getting kickbacks. There's no question that Joe Biden is the big guy. I'm just astonished. I will tell you that I have friends and associates who absolutely believe before his administration is out that the truth about all this will come out and that Joe Biden will be in very deep criminal waters, which of course he can't be prosecuted while president, but I see 2024 will be the last year he's president if he makes it that long.
Well, we could talk about this subject all day long and probably into tomorrow, but we do have some time constraints and probably need to wrap it up. I hope that there's been some things to at least provoke some thought. Again, we do not intend on this program to preach or try and change people's minds. We just want to be a complete source of facts and real information, and that's what we're looking to accomplish every week on Need to Know. Terre Quillian, brilliant as ever. Can't wait for next week's show. Hope you all enjoyed the broadcast. We will have another topic next week that you need to know right here on Tony Kurre Radio.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.